Hello guys! Today, I'm going to tell you about the most widespread panics that have swept across the planet. Grab some snacks, make some tea, and let's get started. The invasion of the Martians, America, 1938. One day, director Orson Welles decided to stage a radio adaptation of H.G. Wells' novel, The War of the Worlds. But he had a bold idea: to make the broadcast sound like a real news report. So on October 30, 1938, the radio station CBS aired the program, and it was clearly announced at the beginning that it was just a play. Soon, the music was interrupted by a breaking news bulletin reporting strange flashes on Mars. Then, a supposedly famous Princeton astronomer, Professor Richard Pearson, appeared on air denying the possibility of life on Mars. The concert resumed, but before long, it was interrupted again by another urgent news report, this time about mysterious explosions on Mars. A few minutes later came a live report of Martians landing on Earth, right in the United States. And then, things escalated quickly. The radio was filled with continuous news updates about battles with the Martians. Human weapons were powerless against the invaders. Alien machines kept landing and destroying cities and infrastructure, and crowds of terrified people were fleeing for their lives. Only after 40 minutes of this escalating drama did the announcers remind listeners that it was all just a radio play. But it was too late. Americans grabbed their guns, jumped into cars, and tried to flee the cities. Others rushed toward the supposed landing sites, desperate to see the Martians themselves. Within hours, roads were jammed with massive traffic. Some panicked citizens even claimed they could smell the chemicals the Martians were using to poison people. According to government estimates, the panic affected over 1 million people. And when it was all over, Orson Welles faced a storm of public outrage and criticism. He even had to publish an official apology in his own paper. Man-Eating Beasts, America, 1874. In 1874, the New York Herald published an article claiming that several dangerous animals had escaped from the New York Zoo. It stated that about a dozen ferocious predators had broken free and were rampaging through the city streets. The report mentioned 50 people killed and more than 100 injured. However, at the very end of the article, there was a note saying that everything written was fictional. Apparently, though, not everyone read that far. People grabbed their guns and rushed outside, some to hunt down the beasts, others to rescue their families and flee the city. Spontaneous self-defense groups began forming on the streets, eager to protect the city from wild animals. When the truth came out, the newspaper's editor faced a storm of public outrage and criticism. He even had to publish an official apology in his own paper. The Fall of London, 1750. In the early spring of 1750, a wave of fear swept over London. An earthquake was said to be approaching. It all began in February of that same year, when the ground had already shaken noticeably, and residents felt 2 tremors that were preceded by a mild flash of lightning. That time, the city got off with just a scare. But soon, rumors spread about another earthquake that would supposedly reduce London to ruins. A specific date was even named: April 15. Masses of people began fleeing the city into the countryside, and the surrounding fields were filled with crowds escaping the predicted catastrophe. Those who couldn't find space among the potato fields pitched tents in Hyde Park. Panic reached its peak the night before April 15 as terrified crowds ran through the streets. But when morning came, London was still standing. Finally, people began searching for the source of the prediction, and it turned out to be a man who had simply seen it in a dream. The Braid Hunters, China, 1876. In 1876, a strange rumor spread through Nanjing, the former capital of China. The peaceful paper figurines that traditionally decorated homes had suddenly started to come to life. They were set to fly through the air armed with scissors, and their only goal was to cut off men's braids. The panic, it seems, was fueled by historical memory. After all, since 1644, when the Manchu conquerors imposed their rule, the braid had become the only acceptable hairstyle for Chinese men. Any other haircut was considered rebellion and could lead to brutal punishment. The commotion was immense. Men began tossing their braids over their shoulders to keep them under close watch. Peasants started sleeping outdoors, setting up night guards. To scare off the evil spirits, people lit torches throughout the night. City officials even advised citizens to write a magic phrase on paper and tear it into 3 parts. one to burn, one to wear in their hair, and one to hang on the front door. They even patrolled the streets, keeping a particularly close eye on foreigners. The wave of panic lasted for 3 years before it finally began to fade away. Nuclear strike on Hawaii, 2018. On the morning of January 13, 2018, every resident of Hawaii received a terrifying message on their phone. Ballistic missile threat inbound to Hawaii. Seek immediate shelter. This is not a drill. The alert was also broadcast on television as a scrolling message, and local news websites quickly reported it. People panicked and rushed to their cars, desperately trying to drive somewhere far away from the cities. The main highway in the capital, Honolulu, became completely jammed. Everyone was gripped by fear. Ordinary citizens, government officials, even celebrities. But soon it turned out that the message was sent by mistake due to an error in the missile alert system. The system was undergoing a routine test that morning, and the employee responsible for it simply pressed the wrong button.